This is a UNCW production. Hey everyone, it's Taylor. I hope everyone is doing great and adjusting well to this new thing everyone's having to deal with. Today we're going to be discussing alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. So everything's going to be pretty much the same. It's just going to be online and virtual. So let's get started. So our objectives for today are going to be understand what alcohol, tobacco, and drugs are and how they affect the body. We're going to demonstrate the ability to use goal setting skills to enhance health and avoid unhealthy decisions. So our healthy behavior outcomes are going to be analyze the role of individual responsibility for being alcohol and drug free. So like always, we usually start out with the bell ringer. So we're going to start out with the bell ringer again. The question for this bell ringer is, why do you think some teens abuse drugs and alcohol? So take some time to jot some things down, whatever you come in mind with. Some things that I came up with, and I had asked a few people what they think about that question, and we came up with it could be fun to try. People think when they are depressed, it might help. Peer pressure is a big thing, and it's the popular thing to do. Your friends are doing it. You see people on social media, such as celebrities, doing it. It's an escape or self-medication. Some people have said you're bored or you want to rebel, and others have also said it gives them a huge confidence boost. Some keywords to look out for is addiction, prevention, law, habits, decisions, consequences, and even society. So now we're going to watch a video. I saw this video and I just thought it was really interesting on how alcohol, tobacco, and drugs can affect the brain. So we're going to watch this. Give me a second to pull this up. I am learning just like you guys are how to virtually do everything. I think we might have to watch it like this.
With long-term alcohol and drug abuse, the brain physically changes. The brain shrinks, actually shrinks, and its ability to process information is damaged. A part of the brain called the limbic system, which supports a variety of functions including emotion, behavior, motivation, long-term memory, and olfaction, is affected by heavy alcohol or drug abuse. When someone drinks or takes drugs, the limbic system emits dopamine, the substance that makes us feel good. With prolonged abuse, the brain stops making as much dopamine as it used to. As a result, the brain's reward system receives very little input, and the person has a hard time experiencing pleasure of any kind. That's why many drug and alcohol abusers are no longer interested in the things that used to bring them joy. The frontal lobe of the brain also suffers. It shrinks and loses its ability to function properly. This part of the brain regulates decisions, choices, and the ability to know the difference between right and wrong. When the frontal lobe is not working as it should, you can't control the impulse to drink or take drugs. The amygdala is controlled by the frontal lobe and is the emotional center of the brain. Without proper control from the frontal lobe, the amygdala becomes oversensitive to stress. In this state, someone can have extreme mood swings and become trapped in a state of panic and worry. Because of this, many addicts and alcoholics are constantly fearful and rarely feel safe. The cellular structure of the brain is affected by heavy drinking and drug use as well. The gray cells control thinking and feeling, while the white cells provide the connection and communication between the gray cells. They're like network cables, passing information from one gray cell to another. Persistent drug and alcohol use kills the white cells in the brain. This severs the communication pathways so that information is not passed along properly. The brain can reroute these communication pathways using the remaining white cells, but it requires abstinence and time for this to happen. These negative effects that drugs and alcohol have on the brain are frightening. But there's good news. If someone can stop drinking and taking drugs completely, the brain begins to heal. Cognitive function and brain shrinkage can be reversed. New pathways in the brain can be forged, and a person can return to normal brain function. If someone can learn to live without the drugs or alcohol, there is hope for full physical recovery.
Okay, so I thought that video did a very great job of telling you how alcohol, tobacco, and drugs can affect your brain. And so, yeah. Next, we're just going to go ahead and get started. And I'm sure everyone knows what alcohol is, but here's a recap. Alcohol is a drug made from fermented grains, fruits, or vegetables. It can slow down the central nervous system and harms body organs. Alcohol is also considered a depressant. This means it depresses the function of the mind and body. So, there are 3 different types of alcohol. I'm sure everyone knows that, but it's beer, wine, and distilled spirits, which is hard liquors. So, a little more about alcohol. Your BAC, which is your blood alcohol content, is the percentage of alcohol in an individual's bloodstream when they consume alcohol. So, as you can see here, a 0.01 to a 0.02, you may notice some subtle effects. They usually appear normal during this stage, from 0.1 to 0.19. There's overexpressions, some anger, sadness could be involved. They have a lot more confidence, and their vision is starting to become off. And at a 0.50, you usually experience death. So, yeah, the amount of alcohol consumed and length of time drinking can affect your blood alcohol content, as well as a person's weight, height, gender, and tolerance can play into someone's BAC level. So yeah, some diseases caused by alcohol. This could be alcohol poisoning, which is when you consume way too much alcohol for the body to handle. Cirrhosis of the liver. This is when liver tissue is destroyed and replaced by scar tissue. Cardiovascular disease can occur. Stomach disorders, birth defects if you are drinking while pregnant. It can even weaken your immune system, and that will make it harder for you to fight off infections. You can eventually become obese. So why do you think you could become overweight from drinking? Let's refer back to our nutrition lesson. So think about that for a second. So alcohol has lots of carbs, added sugars, different types of things put into them that can definitely cause you to gain weight, especially if you're binge drinking. So yeah, alcoholism is one of the biggest diseases caused by alcohol. This is a disease in which a person heavily relies on alcohol and they cannot stop drinking. Some withdrawal symptoms would include nausea, sweating, shakiness, and even anxiety. So there are definitely issues within themselves when it comes to drinking, within the family, and also with community. This could be drinking and driving, absence from school and work, even aggression, violence, and destructive behavior to the public property. So now we're going to take some time to work on this worksheet. I will have this sent to you guys. You can print it out, you can write it down on a piece of paper, whatever you feel comfortable and easiest for you guys to do. So basically you're going to match the corresponding letter with a number, and just fill that out and have that sent back to me so I can check it. And we will discuss this later in the class, but at the end of the lesson, this is basically just a drug, alcohol, and tobacco contract for you guys to keep. So next, let's go ahead and talk about tobacco. Tobacco is a plant that is grown and it is legal to grow. It is legal to be smoked, chewed, or sniffed. It contains nicotine, which is an addictive chemical, and it is mostly used in cigarettes, pipes, and cigars. So nicotine alters your mood. It stimulates the central nervous system. It can increase heart rate and your blood pressure. Increased risk for health problems and cancers. Nicotine contains more than 4,000 ingredients, such as car battery ingredients, motor fuels, carcinogens, which are cancer causers, carbon monoxide, which is a poisonous gas, and even tar, which is pretty gross. So, how does tobacco affect you physically? So, it can increase your heart rate, cause bad breath, reduce gums and ulcers on gums, and it can cause tooth decay. It can cause black and hairy tongue, bad skin, which can cause you to have wrinkles when you get older. Interferes with physical performance, and it stains your fingers and teeth. So overall, it has a lot of bad, noticeable physical effects. So some of these are tobacco cause diseases, emphysema, which is when your alveoli becomes damaged and limits the ability to your lungs to exchange carbon dioxide for oxygen. It can cause different types of cancers, such as lung cancer, throat cancer, all kinds of different cancers. It can cause peptic ulcers in the stomach and a chronic cough and respiratory illnesses. So like we discussed how alcohol affects the community, tobacco affects the community also. It can expose people to secondhand smoke. It can cause air pollution. It's harder for the streets to stay clean from the disposal of cigarettes, and it has a terrible smell. So drugs. A drug is something that affects your body. The drugs pass through the body and interferes with the brain and neurotransmitters within your brain. So different types of drugs. These include pharmaceutical drugs that are prescribed by your doctor, which is aspirins, ADHD medicines, those types of medications, and recreational drugs like alcohol, nicotine, caffeine. So drug abuse. Drugs are commonly abused within the United States. This occurs when the non-permissive consumption of certain substances that may lead to physical and psychological dependence. So some commonly abused drugs is marijuana, cocaine, heroin, alcohol, prescription drugs, and inhalants. So drug abuse. Drugs that are abused cause a surge in levels of dopamine in your brain. This triggers the feeling of pleasure, so this is often why people become addicted to drugs, because they enjoy that pleasure feeling. When your brain has changes occurring, it interferes with the ability to think clearly, exercise good judgment, control your behavior, and feel normal without drugs. Okay, signs of drug abuse. You will notice bloodshot eyes, pupils become enlarged or even smaller than usual, changes in appetite, sudden weight loss, impaired coordination, and your physical appearance deteriorates overall. So this you'll notice, skinny faces, they look like they're very frail, things like that. So how do you treat drug addiction? So there's different treatments for different people, but most of the time hospitalization is common, therapies, changes in an addict's social environment, all three of these, 1 out of 3 of these, it could really be anything for each individual. So now it's time for us to practice. So scenario 1, Ashley is at home with her older sister. Their Aunt Lynn is a very heavy smoker. She arrives while their mother is out shopping. Aunt Lynn lights a cigarette as soon as she walks into the house. There is no smoking allowed in Ashley's home. What should she do? Well, if I were Ashley and my aunt came in and she was smoking, I wouldn't be rude about it, but I would just let her know that my family does not allow smoking in the house. That's just a rule that we created as a family, and I would just let her know that. Or if you didn't want to confront if you did not want to confront her yourself, you could always have, your mother or father call her or text her, or just let her know, that in your home that's not allowed, and nothing against her, just that that's a family rule that you guys have came up with. All right, next. So for scenario 2, 4 of your friends are driving to a lake house for the weekend. The driver is smoking and drinking. What would you do? So take some time to think about that one and write it down. And for me, what I would do if I was in that situation, always think before. So I would definitely text before I was picked up if there was going to be any drinking in the car. Um, if so, maybe find a different ride or drive yourself. Or yeah, that's probably what I would do. It's always best to think ahead during those situations just to be safe. All right, scenario 3. You and a friend have just watched a movie. You are leaving the theaters and notice a group of your popular classmates smoking weed. You stop and talk. You and your friend are asked to hit it. What would you do? So think about that and write it down real fast. For me, um, you don't always have to tell the full on truth. You don't always have to say, look like you're lame or whatever, and just say, I'm scared, I don't want to, or I don't want to. You could always just say you have a job interview coming up and a drug test, and you really need the job, to be successful, and you can't at the moment, or you just, don't want to. So just tell them that you have a drug test coming up. They can't judge you for that. I think that's all the scenarios that we have. Yeah. So lastly, on your way out, do not forget your drug, alcohol, and tobacco contract. I want you guys to take the time to read it and fill it out, and then also give the bottom half to your parents. That way you guys can, just make a commitment to yourself with your families to, stay drug, alcohol, and tobacco free. I hope you guys enjoyed this lesson, and if you have any questions or concerns about anything, you can always reach out to me, your teacher, or anybody else. So, bye guys. Have a great day.